Hey, Sarah Palin. This is Rudy Davis. I live down here in Texas, a little bit south of you. Hey, I've been looking all over the internet for your phone number, and I simply can't find a phone number for you whatsoever. But I did find sarahpack.com, and I did find the donate button where you allow people to donate to you and contribute and ask you to come visit. I could even send you a message. I don't have an email address, but your website allows me to send you a message. So I'm going to send you this open video that I'm making public for everyone to hear. But I want to talk to you about a young man named Schaeffer Cox. He's got a website called freeschaeffercox.com. I understand the media up there has made Schaeffer Cox's name mud, and they've made his captors and his government informants heroes. So I don't know what's wrong with you people in Alaska. Us down here in Texas, we can see right through the government BS and lies when they send government agents to threaten and set up a young man who was giving liberty speeches, talking about the Second Amendment, talking about how bad the Federal Reserve is. Are you aware of that speech that Schaeffer Cox gave in Montana that's called Reclaiming Liberty? Hey, I bet Schaeffer Cox might have even had got national attention just like you did. But that never happened because the Obama administration under Karen Loeffler, Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch sent government agents in to set him up and put on a false charges of conspiracy to commit murder. And we know how you guys manipulate the federal courtrooms based on what happened with Ken Hovind. But Sarah, I was surprised when I learned about Schaeffer Cox. It's like the first question I asked myself is, how come I never heard about Schaeffer Cox before? It's like he's been in prison over 5 years and I never even heard about him. And once I saw his fiery speech in Montana, I'm like, what is going on? How have they suppressed news about this young man? And I've been talking to people that have been aware of what's going on, and they said that he's been suppressed in the media and up in Alaska, that his name is mud. And I'm like, well, us folks down here in Texas, we don't just believe everything the media tells us, and we don't believe just because the government says something bad about somebody, we don't believe it. So we do a little investigating ourselves. And so I've been reading the trial transcripts. I've been reading and educating myself about the charges, and you know that nobody was killed. He didn't have a plan to kill anybody. The government agents, if that's not entrapment, what they did to Schaeffer Cox, I don't know what is. But Sarah, I'll make this video short. I'm going to ask you, like, the first question, because we're fixing to make the Schaeffer Cox story viral. It really is about to go nationwide. I really believe that with all my heart. And I guarantee you people all over this country are going to ask themselves two questions. Why haven't I heard about Schaeffer Cox before? How come they've suppressed this for 5 years? And they're going to ask themselves three questions, actually, Sarah. Why haven't I heard about Schaeffer Cox before? What the hell are CMU secret CIA torture prisons doing here in America, in Illinois and Indiana? And I guarantee you, Sarah, the third question they're going to ask themselves is, how come Sarah Palin up there in Alaska hadn't mentioned Schaeffer Cox before? How come she hadn't said something about this young man who was speaking out about the Federal Reserve, how evil it was, speaking out about the Second Amendment and supporting it, supporting the Constitution? And how come Sarah Palin hadn't told anybody about Schaeffer Cox? Was Sarah Palin ashamed of Schaeffer's chains? Was Sarah Palin ashamed to be associated with a convicted felon from the Obama administration? Because the Bible tells us not to be ashamed of our brothers in prison. Hey, Sarah, I want to remind you of Luke 12:48. Luke 12:48 says, "For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required." Hey, Sarah, God blessed you with some good looks. You got a good-looking, pretty face. And not only that, but you've been given a lot of popularity. You know what? That's a blessing from God. But you know what? You've been given a lot, Sarah, and from you, much is expected. Do you remember in Genesis 40:23 and 40:22, it talks about the chief baker and the chief cupbearer? Do you know that when they got out of prison, they totally forgot about Joseph? And I want you to go to read that chapter and remind yourself what happened to the folks that forgot about Joseph in prison. Go remind yourself what actually happened to the chief baker and the chief cupbearer. Hey, Sarah, I suggest you don't forget about Schaeffer Cox. And I don't know why we haven't heard you speak his name in the last 5 years, but I guarantee you I'm going to make it my life's mission to make Schaeffer Cox's story go viral, and people are going to ask themselves three questions. Why haven't I heard about Schaeffer Cox before? What the hell are CMU prisons, secret CIA torture prisons, doing here on American soil? And the third question that's going to come around to everybody's mind is, Why the hell hasn't Sarah Palin told us about this young man already? Hey, Sarah, I suggest you do the right thing. I suggest you go investigate Schaeffer Cox. I know you got to know about him already being up there in Alaska, but I suggest you say something in support of Schaeffer Cox. I highly suggest that you do that. I think God would be pleased with that. And I don't really have a problem with you, Sarah. I kind of think you've been doing some good stuff, but don't let us down on Schaeffer Cox, please.